Hello and welcome to the Two Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathan.
And me, Adam. And we'll start this week as we always do with the news. And I think the first thing we have to talk about is the really sad news that Mexican wrestler Silver King, who is the son of Dr. Wagner, has died at the age of 51 after collapsing during a match in London. I only really saw Silver King during his WCW run in the late 90s. He also worked under the Black Tiger gimmick in New Japan, but I don't know much about him past that. Regardless, though, this is tremendously sad news, and our thoughts go out to Silver King's family.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a super sad moment. Anytime anyone passes away in wrestling, it's always sad, and to pass away in the ring is obviously even worse. Same as you. I don't know. I know about him, but I haven't seen very much of him. I know that he was in WCW. I don't believe I was watching at the time that I remember. I know him from his little bit of his run as Black Tiger in New Japan, and I've seen the odd match of him in AAA. It was AAA he was part of?
I believe so,
yeah.
Yes, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I've seen little bits of him, but not that much. But obviously this is a super sad moment, an event, and our thoughts go out to the families of everyone involved.
And sticking on, unfortunately, with the sad theme, we have heard the fact that Ric Flair was apparently rushed to hospital this morning. Details have been differing on this one as to the severity of the situation. Obviously, we hope the severity is non-existent. We really do. I mean, yeah. Ric Flair, in mine and I know yours opinion, is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it would be like if he was to pass away. So we really, really hope that this is nothing like that, and this is really just routine, like Conrad Thompson has said. We really hope that that's the truth. So
yeah, I believe was the news broke by TMZ.
Yes, I believe that was.
And obviously TMZ are naturally going to sort of like sensationalise it a bit more.
Yeah, that is their wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's what they do. They're trying to get people going to their website and getting viewers and things like that. So that makes sense that they would do it, obviously in bad taste, but that's what they do. Obviously, hopefully Conrad knows far more than anybody else will, and Conrad's been able to say, it's just a scheduled thing that Ric's having happen to him, and then hopefully everything's absolutely fine.
Well, either way, we send out our best wishes to Ric.
Absolutely.
Lots and lots of AEW news this week, and I think we'll have to start with the big one. At Warner Media's television upfronts, it was announced that AEW will begin airing a weekly wrestling TV show on TNT this coming autumn. Huge, huge news. TNT has wrestling again.
I know. First time since Nitro.
Yeah.
I know. Like, well, to be fair, do you remember when it was Meltzer that reported it, that it looked like it was going to be the biggest show, non-WWE, in terms of wrestling, that was going to be on any network since Nitro? Well, here we go.
Yeah, same network.
It's absolutely awesome. They fully deserve it. There's already interest going around the wrestling world. There's interest from outside the wrestling world as well.
This has been quite a buzzworthy topic, actually.
It has. I've noticed several non-wrestling outlets and media platforms putting it out, and this is a big deal. This is a really, really big deal. Hopefully it's 2 hours. And in a good time slot. But either way, this is a massive
apparently
deal.
It's prime time.
Wow, awesome, even better. And supposedly the rumours are that they're going to be focusing on, it's going to be a sports-centric show.
Yeah, there's lots of different stuff that have come out, and I think we'll find out more and more as the weeks go by. But there was some really interesting stuff in there, including some different stuff that we've never really seen in wrestling. Like Cody was talking about the use of analytics that they're going to really use in it. So it's going to be more than just wins and losses. And they're going to take he said it's not going to be a major part of the show, but it's going to be something that if people want to delve into that side of things, they're going to make statistics and stuff like that available for them, which is totally different to any kind of wrestling show we've ever seen. That's something you'd see with the NFL or MLB even more so. Like, they're so huge on the analytics over there.
But like you say, obviously it's a massive part of sports now, and if they're going down the route of having it being sports-centric, analytics, especially since the growth of it in baseball, analytics has become huge in American sports.
Totally. And AEW have also announced a myriad of signings since we were last on air, with Angelico and Jack Evans joining as a tag team. They will face Best Friends at Double or Nothing. Jerry Lynn has also signed on as a coach and agent, and Rick Knox, longtime PWG referee, has also joined the company, along with Bryce Remsburg, Aubrey Edwards, Earl Hebner, and Paul Turner as referees.
Yeah, some really, really good signings there. I'm a big fan of Van Helico, and I'm a really big fan of Jack Evans, and I would never have said that about 5 years ago, but he was so great in Lucha Underground and
As
so
part
good
of the
at
Worldwide Underground.
yeah, and so good at his character that I've grown to genuinely love Jack Evans.
Yeah.
I think the other signings are absolutely fine. The referees, obviously, are what the referees are.
I think they've got the two best referees on the independent scene, because I've got a lot of time for Rick Knox and I've got a lot of time for Bryce Remsburg.
Same.
I've never been a massive fan of Paul Turner, but that's simply because I don't like his cadence. It's a really minor thing, but it is kind of a big thing for referees. So for me, I've never been a big Paul Turner fan, but there's some really good signings in there for them.
And obviously, cadences, we need to talk about Earl Hebner.
Yeah.
Earl Hebner's there because of its name appeal, right?
It's the only reason.
Yeah. And to be fair, as much as we don't like, both of us do not like the way Earl Hebner counts, the 1, 2,
and then
massive weight.
halfway across the ring.
Yeah, and the massive dive and wait for the 3, which makes no sense. But either way, you forget how many major wrestlers way back in the Attitude Era
Earl Hebner was their referee.
Earl was their guy.
Yeah.
Triple H.
Hunter,
yeah.
Rock.
They all said it, if they were going to have a major match, they wanted Earl to be the referee. So,
I think that's because from a fan's perspective, we only care when we see the referee about counting and stuff like that. But from a wrestler's perspective, there's a lot more that goes into being a referee.
When they've got a finish and all that kind of stuff.
And you've got to go down to who you trust.
Absolutely.
So sticking with the AEW theme, for our UK listeners, Double or Nothing will air live over here on ITV Box Office at 1 a.m. our time on sort of Saturday night, Sunday morning of the 25th. Whatever you want to consider it, whether it's the morning or the night. The pre-show is going to be called Buy In and will air an hour before the show on ITV4. Kip Sabian versus Sammy Guevara and the Casino Battle Royale will be the matches on the pre-show.
That should be really good, and hopefully that draws some people in as well. I know we'll be watching it on ITV4 just because we'll want, kind of like when World of Sport started. I watched it because I wanted as many people to watch it as possible. So I know we'll watch it just to get it some ratings.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see going forward whether they have some kind of relationship with ITV.
To be fair, World of Sport was not what they wanted, but ITV are clearly open to bringing wrestling back, but it has to be a legitimately good product, because World of Sport was absolutely awful from week 1.
Yeah, totally agree. Interestingly as well, along the UK theme, there are rumours that when WWE's contract with Sky comes to an end, they will be signing with BT Sport, which will significantly limit their exposure over here.
Yeah, for those of you who don't come from the UK, BT is a big network here.
But it's a subscription service almost within a subscription service of itself.
Exactly. When people talk about networks and satellite stations here, really what anyone ever thinks of is Sky. Sky is where the majority of the important football games or soccer games are here. Really, people think of Sky much more than they think of BT. And BT's been very successful and has the Champions League for the football and all of that. But really, they're going to get more people on Sky.
So NXT TakeOver 25 is taking place in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
25?
Yeah, it's the 25th TakeOver.
25? Can you believe?
Unbelievable.
Oh.
And that will obviously take place on the 1st of June, so we have got a location for that show now.
Mm-hmm.
Percy Watson has left WWE to, quote, pursue other interests. This kind of explains his replacement on 205 Live by Aiden English and on NXT by Beth Phoenix. I think this is a shame, to be honest. I think Percy has come a long, long way as a commentator.
Agreed.
He was really, really bad to start with, but he's actually become really competent towards the end of his run, and I thought he complemented Nigel and Vic really well on 205 Live, and Mauro and Nigel on NXT really well as well. So I'm kind of sad in a way that he's gone.
Maybe he was being asked to go to the main roster and he thought it best to get out before, things went bad.
I wouldn't blame him on that front.
Yeah.
So the XFL has announced TV deals this week with ABC, ESPN and Fox Sports, and are actually getting paid to do so, which is somewhat of a surprise. All the evidence still points to this being a massive failure, but this is undoubtedly good news for Vince and the league. And you know what? If it's a success, maybe Vince can go and focus on that, and we can have somebody else run the wrestling side of things.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah,
Please.
The more successful that this is, hopefully it'll take away Vince's attention, and Hunter can start and be what we all know he can be.
And the last thing for a long list of news this week is Austin Aries and Ross and Marshall Von Erich have signed with MLW.
Right, well, I don't know very, very much about the Von Erichs at all. Obviously, the great family. We all know about the tragedy that happened with the Von Erichs. But I know a lot about Austin Aries. And whatever you think about Austin Aries and his character and what he does on Twitter and how he speaks to people and his relationships with other wrestlers.
And his personality.
Yeah, like Austin Aries is a fantastic professional wrestler and is genuinely still one of the best in the ring. And certainly the best at what he does.
Yeah, totally agree.
So Aries getting a shot anywhere I like. I am surprised that AEW haven't made a move for Aries. Whether that's them being cautious as they begin, I don't know. But I am surprised AEW have not made a move for Aries.
Possibly, but
I get why.
There might be some people in that company who have bitter feelings towards him. He's burned a hell of a lot of bridges, and I'm not the type of person who is able to keep track of how many bridges Austin Aries has burned. So,
lots and lots and lots.
But on the Von Erich side of things, like, I've not seen them in about 7 years, maybe. I remember they were at a TNA show when they ran a show in Fort Worth in Dallas. I think it was Bound for Glory or Slammiversary, it might have been. It was one of the two. And they were in a tag match and they were super over because obviously it was Dallas.
It was Texas,
but you know what?
They were the Von Erichs.
They were clearly still green at the time, but they had a pretty good match. And if they've improved, I don't see why this is a bad pickup for MLW.
Not at all.
And I've been catching a few of their shows recently because it's on Free Sports over here and they've been really good.
Yeah, so MLW is more than decent.
Definitely. And if anybody hasn't checked it out yet, there is a Von Erichs documentary that aired on Viceland over in the States. I believe it is available over here, but I'm not sure through which means. But either way, wherever you're listening, you should go out your way to see it because it is very, very good.
It is like the saddest story in the history of pro wrestling, isn't it, the Von Erichs?
Yeah, but it's a very neutral perspective, I thought, and I think Kevin's just absolutely fantastic in it. Like,
yeah.
And he's never been the best interviewer in the world, I suppose.
No, he's quite like I don't mean bland, but he's very straightforward, isn't he, as a person?
But he really helps convey the Von Erich story so well. So go out your way and see that if you have the opportunity to do so.
And if you haven't seen the Von Erichs, just go on YouTube and put in any world class.
Yeah. And with that, we sadly have to move on to Monday Night Raw. Oh my God, this was so bad.
This is the worst that Raw has ever been.
I do genuinely think this might be the worst episode of Monday Night Raw I've ever seen.
It was awful.
Yeah.
Atrocious.
So let's get through it as quickly as possible.
Yep.
We open with Vince.
Of course we did.
He's quickly interrupted by Roman Reigns.
Of course he was.
Tells him not to Superman punch him, and this isn't even the right show. Reigns says that Vince and his kids lied to the fans, and he won't take their orders anymore. He listens to the WWE Universe now. Vince isn't happy with this because it will encourage others, and as such, Daniel Bryan arrives. Bryan says ever since WrestleMania, he's been in solitude, searching for answers, and when he heard that Roman was coming to Raw, he showed up to have a meeting with Vince. We never really find out what about, but whatever. No. Kofi Kingston is next. Kofi says Bryan could have come to him with his issues, and Bryan calls him an undeserving champion who won via a fluke. Vince then says they should make a wildcard rule, where 3 stars from SmackDown could come to Raw at any time and vice versa. He's a genius, apparently. Drew McIntyre is out now and says this isn't SmackDown Presents Raw. He claims Reigns went to SmackDown to avoid him. Vince now books Reigns versus McIntyre and Bryan versus Kofi for the title tonight. Vince claims he's brilliant. And then AJ comes out for reasons that I still don't really know. Styles plays the role of viewer as he questions Vince's mental state. He calls it convenient that Reigns is here to watch Rollins' back. Styles says he has some friends on SmackDown too. In storyline, who are these friends? Like Gallows and Anderson on Raw. It can't be Devitt.
Balor?
Like, he tipped up and kicked Devitt out. They were only on the New Japan show together for literally one show, and it was AJ kicking Devitt out the Bullet Club. That was it. It was the only show they were on together in New Japan.
I'm not even sure they were on the same show.
It was, yeah.
Well, no, they were on the same show, but I'm not even sure they interacted. Because the Bucks kicked him out.
Yeah, but AJ was there, wasn't he?
No. He debuted later in the night and attacked Okada.
Yeah.
So they literally, the only reason... Cause
so who's his friends on SmackDown?
They've done like the Too Sweet thing before in WWE, and it's hilarious because obviously, you know, my knowledge of New Japan. I'm like, yeah, but like they never actually interacted in the Bullet Club. It was like ships passing
And you
in the
could
night.
say friends, but like I wouldn't go out there and say that your best friend from
The friend
wherever.
of my friend is my friend.
Yeah, just whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Rollins is here, and eventually they're gonna Eventually, you know what? They're gonna do the revolving door segment, and literally the entire roster is gonna come out, and it's just gonna be one after another. It's reaching that point now.
That would be a much better use of 3 hours.
Yeah, just people continually coming out and cutting a promo for no apparent reason.
And then at some point, the first person will come back around.
It's like when the first penalty taker has to come back.
When the man comes around.
So Seth and AJ argue before AJ says he'll win the title at Money in the Bank. Vince then delves deep into his bag of bad wrestling tropes and brings out number 35 as he books Rollins and Styles as a team tonight. No word of a lie. I switched Raw off here and watched the rest of it at a later date because I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm done.
Like
the first segment.
The wild card rule. Yeah. We have ran out of ideas.
This was like horrendous and the epitome of why the ratings are so bad, and yet it was their idea of how to arrest the slide. It's bonkers. Like, this formulaic opening segment is part of the problem. So they decide, I know, we'll do formulaic opening segment and we'll call ourselves geniuses and that'll solve the ratings crisis.
We'll talk for 20 minutes because that's what people want to see in 2019.
So next up, it was the aforementioned tag match with AJ and Seth versus Lashley and Corbin. The heels dominate Rollins. Rollins finally cuts them off with the blockbuster, and Styles tags in and works over Lashley until Lashley regains control. The heels then work over Styles. Corbin works a particularly dull heat segment until Rollins gets a hot tag and hits a suicide dive. Lashley cuts him off, but AJ makes a save. Rollins hits an enziguri and super kick. Styles then accidentally hits Rollins and leaves, because of course he does. Man, this show sucks. Corbin then hits End of Days and beats the Universal Champion. Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
Beats the Universal Champion.
Why did AJ leave?
Baron Corbin.
Why did AJ leave?
I don't know.
Because that makes him, like, when I saw that, I was like, right, I know they're going for, like, ooh, shades of grey. But when I saw that, I was like, no, that's just a heel turn. Like,
but
that's what a heel does.
If that was the case and it was a heel move and he was like, I'm going to leave Seth dry and high, why did he save him, like, seconds earlier? He literally saves him and then they go back and forth a bit and then he accidentally hits him. Like, what?
Awful.
Just whatever. So this went too long. It was devoid of heat and killed an already dead show. How can you do that with a match that involves Seth Rollins and AJ Styles?
Because you have Baron Corbin in that match.
Just whatever.
And Bobby, who's gone from being amazing to being rubbish.
I'm starting to think that it's not Baron Corbin's fault. I'm starting to think that maybe Baron Corbin is perfectly competent and we're just not seeing it
and it's just
because it's the company.
Yeah. The company's the heel here, you know this.
Yeah. So Sami Zayn comes out next. He runs down the fans and asks what they have to complain about. He clearly has not been watching the first hour at this point.
All the last several weeks.
Braun is here and chases Sami backstage. He destroys Sami before throwing him into a dumpster. The bin men's truck arrives and takes him away. Take me with you, Sami, because landfill is infinitely more interesting than this.
Burial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we had the Lucha House Party versus a bunch of jobbers. They hit Salida del Sol, a top rope elbow, and a shooting star press for the win in 30 seconds. Natty, Naomi, and Dana all receive wedding invitations to watch Lacey's match tonight. I cannot do this segment justice. The acting was so bad, the writing was so bad, and overall it was just pointless. This has to be a contender for one of the worst segments produced outside of obviously bad stuff like Katie Vick. When you just take like a regular segment.
Yeah, something that just sucks.
This was absolutely atrocious. And I was just like, I was looking around. I was sitting watching this on my own, but I was looking around just for somebody to say, the hell is this?
Yeah, because Raw has got to a point, you know what we always say about wrestling? Raw has got to the point now where, like, if someone walked in and saw you watching it and stayed with you for like 5 minutes.
The thing is,
they'd turn to you and just go like, why are you watching this rubbish?
And you wouldn't be able to defend it.
No,
and it's not like back
I
in
just go, I do a podcast.
It's not like back in
I have to.
It's not like back in the day where you'd see something totally embarrassing in an Attitude Era Raw, but then the person who was sitting watching you and would watch the rest of the show with you would watch The Rock in the main event and they'd go, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You don't have The Rock in the main event now.
No.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, you have Baron Corbin.
Miz waits. And then we have Ricochet versus Robert Roode. Rude beats down Ricochet for a while until Ricochet hits a moonsault press. He follows with strikes but gets caught with a spinebuster for 2. They work up top. Ricochet knocks him off and hits a 630 for the win. If you wanted an idea of how week to week they book this show, it's this. Rude beat Ricochet 2 weeks ago, and then last week Ricochet was announced for Money in the Bank, and Rude didn't even get on the show, and they obviously realised that made no sense, so they had Ricochet beat him here. Totally fly by the seat of your pants booking.
Yeah, like I said this last week, didn't I? I said about the fact that, like, how's Ricochet in Money in the Bank when Rude beat him? Like, they just have no idea anymore, do they? They have lost it.
It's just the fact that the shows have been rewritten 5 minutes beforehand, so it's like nothing you've done previously can make sense, and it's not like you can forward plan because you've got a crazy old man who's changing the entire show 5 minutes before it starts.
It's like this literally feels a case of they're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, but they have nothing good left to throw.
Ray versus Joe is official for Money in the Bank. We see Ray and Dominic, and when Dominic leaves, Joe follows. Is this 2007 TNA? Joe says that Dominic tried to humiliate him last week. Joe yells at him. Dominic looks scared. Joe is a great promo. Sadly, this 60 seconds of Joe yelling at someone not even technically on the roster would be segment of the week if nothing else aired past this segment this week. Like, this was, at this point, the best segment on the show. It was just Joe screaming at somebody who's not even on the roster for 60 seconds.
It actually
That was the most entertaining thing.
Yeah.
What?
But I think Hornswoggle could have come out and it would probably have been the most entertaining thing this week so far.
Lacey Evans beat a jobber.
Yeah.
Naomi, Dana, Alexa, and Natty were at ringside. Lacey won with the woman's right.
Yay.
Lacey cut a promo post-match and said she invited her guests so that they could see a classy lady in action. She warns them against cashing in against her. And Becky tips up and brawls with Lacey, and Lacey manages to run away. Bryan cuts a promo on Kofi, promising to beat him to save WWE and humanity. And then we have the...
Can Bryan please save us? Can Bryan win all the titles?
Well, yeah.
I think that's the only way at this rate we can be saved. Can Bryan be, like, literally the Universal Champion?
I wonder if Bryan can wrestle himself in every match of every show.
Just put someone remotely half decent in there, and Bryan will get a 5-star match out of them.
So the Vikings versus Hawkins and Ryder. The Vikings dominate until Ryder gets the tag and he hits a missile dropkick. Hansen gets dumped and Hawkins attacks until Raw cuts him off. Thor's hammer finishes Ryder. This was there. Like, Ryder and Hawkins as champs at this point is just daft.
Right, so we literally said last week about the Viking Raiders. We were like, they're clearly building them up slowly so that they can face Hawkins and Ryder. And then I was like, oh, they've done it already. Like, why spend time investing in a match and building it up and selling a story? Nah, just do it on Raw.
More Bray wackiness. Still dumb.
Yep, still not very good.
Seth says he's going to break AJ's face. And then we had Roman versus Drew. We saw this at Mania and it was nothing special. What's it going to be on the Raw from Hell? Drew gets heat, in a loose sense of the word, on Reigns. McIntyre hits a headbutt for 2. Reigns cuts him off with a DDT for 2, but misses the drive-by and is slammed into the steps. McIntyre goes up top for reasons and flies into a Superman punch for 2. Drew cuts off the spear once, but Reigns hits it the second time before Shane runs in for the DQ. My notes aren't long because this Raw is the anti-joy, but this was actually pretty decent. About on the level of their Mania match, if not a little better, before the absolutely moronic finish. Why am I wasting 20 minutes on a match that is going to end in a screwy finish with Shane involved?
Because it's
End this show.
Because it's 1995, mate.
Like,
it's 1995. They stopped doing that a long time ago, and they've started doing it again. The anti-joy, by the way, 100% is the title of this episode.
Without a doubt.
WWE Raw, the anti-joy.
Yeah. Post-match, Shane and Elias beat Reigns until Miz's music hits. Miz was waiting in the wrong place all this time. Miz chases Shane through the crowd. Elias then holds Roman up so Drew can lay him out with a Claymore. Rude Interviewer wants to talk to Shane, but Shane runs towards his limo instead. But before he can get in, Miz attacks with a chair. They brawl around the limo until Shane kicks him low and escapes in the limo. Are you ready for the worst segment of the show? And bear in mind what this show's been like.
I forgot what it is now. Go on.
The Usos come out and mock the Revival. They put Icy Hot in their gear.
No.
Or Usi Hot, as they call it.
Oh.
and Dash and Dawson are forced to pretend that their pants are on fire. They then pour water down there. It makes it worse. I'm so done. How can you make a feud between the Usos and the Revival suck?
Because Vince books it.
Like, how though?
The main thing, and we talked about this off air earlier this week, and we said, like, sort of the judgment of whether something's good or not is, can you imagine that Vince Russo booked this? Can you imagine that Vince Russo booked this, Adam?
You know what? I don't know whether I can.
Oh, I can.
I think this might be too stupid for even Russo. That might be how bad the segment was.
Either way, it's just like it. Like,
it is a good barometer, though.
Do you remember,
if Vince Russo would book something, don't book it.
You remember how, like, last week we talked about sort of, you know, you said it had fallen off a cliff, and I was like, dude, like, there was no cliff at any point. We've gone off a mountain into an abyss in the earth. Well, what we've now done is we've now swam all the way down to the bottom of that abyss, and we are drilling into the core of the earth. That is literally what is happening. This is the worst Raw has ever been as long as I've been alive and watching wrestling.
I've not watched, and I have no desire to go back and watch sort of 2000 Night Raw. So I haven't watched it in like 19 years. I'm struggling to imagine that 2000 Night Raws were as bad as this episode of Raw. I really am struggling to imagine it. I remember them absolutely sucking, but I don't think they could have possibly been as bad as the show was.
Thing is, though, at least Nitro, right, even though it would have been stupid, it'll have been entertaining in like a car crash kind of way. This is just boring and stupid.
So Lars Sullivan versus No Way Jose never takes place as Lars kills the conga line and tosses Jose into the crowd. He then hits the Liger Bomb on Jose. Yay. Also, this makes 6 wildcards on a show where we literally just established it can only be 3. 5 if you don't count Shane.
But you'd need, well, you sort of don't have to count Shane, but even still.
Vince tries to defend this and says Shane and Elias don't count. Why would Elias not count? Come on, man. Lars bursts in. Vince says it's now 4. I'm starting to hope the show gets cancelled.
So do I.
And then we get to the saving grace of this show. The one and only good thing on this show past Joe's promo. The main event. The WWE title match between Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan. This was great. This might have saved this from being the worst Raw of all time. I've actually written in my notes, but since then I think I've grown to hate this show even more, and I don't actually think even this could save it from being the worst Raw of all time.
Why was it on Raw and not SmackDown?
Who cares? At this point...
No, they don't. Yeah. They don't care.
Exactly. At this point, would you rather have had a Baron Corbin main event? Because that would have been the creme de la creme for this show.
Like, they don't care. Why should we care anymore?
Yeah. Bryan took control early with kicks and corner drop kicks. Kofi cuts him off, though, with a lariat and dumped Bryan to the outside before hitting a dive. Kofi hit a flying back elbow that got 2, and then Bryan dumps him to the floor to cut him off. He follows and posts him, and then attacks the arm. Back in, and Bryan follows with body shots before hitting a butterfly suplex and transitioning straight into an armbar. He tries to transition that into the label lock, but Kofi kicks his way out, and they work into a double down. Bryan dumps Kofi to the floor again before whipping him into the barricade, but Kofi fights back and hits the high fly float to the back of a standing Bryan for 2. Bryan manages to get the label lock, but Kofi gets to the ropes. Kofi fires back and hits a lariat and then the boom drop. He goes for Trouble in Paradise, but Bryan cuts him off with a drop kick and hits a German for 2. Bryan goes for the Busaiku knee, but misses, and Kofi hits Trouble in Paradise to retain. This is very good.
Very good match, just like it was at Mania. What are you going to expect? Bryan back on form. I'm glad to see Bryan's back properly. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fantastic match. I still loved his gear. He was wearing the gear from Mania. I still loved that. And I look forward to seeing Bryan's heel run continuing. I still don't think it should have happened, but we'll see how it goes moving forward. And I'm glad that Kofi's starting to now, seems to be picking up some momentum.
Yeah.
He really does now.
Totally agree. This was one of the worst television shows I have ever seen.
Yeah. TV shows.
Yeah. Not
wrestling shows, TV shows. And I've seen some bad.
Until the main event, then it just became 3 thoroughly bad hours of television. So not one of the worst television shows I've ever seen. I have seen worse television shows than this, but that's only because Bryan and Kofi raised it. It was at that level.
It's the worst Raw that I can remember.
Yeah.
Like, there will at some point have been one bad like this, but I can't remember.
I remember a really, really bad Raw not long after they went to 3 hours, where I think Ryback and Punk was the title feud at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember that one of those ones around that period, I think it was the build up to Hell in a Cell, being horrendous. And it sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that it was as bad as this.
So, figures.
Yeah. So somehow viewership was up, but not by very much. It was up 4% from last week's record low, but at 2.24 million viewers was the second lowest non-holiday episode viewership ever.
Yeah.
It drew 2.47 million viewers in hour 1 and dropped off to 2.02 million for hour 3, which in a way is relatively impressive that the drop off A wasn't steeper and B didn't dip below 2 million in the final hour given the great viewership that the Golden State Houston game did that started midway through hour 3. Still horrendously awful though, so, you know.
Just as genuinely as bad as a wrestling show can be in terms of just being boring and devoid of any ideas anymore. We were talking about it earlier, I cannot wait until AEW gets started and we can actually start and devote a lot more time to reviewing their wrestling show on this podcast. Because I don't know about you, I more than enjoy talking about wrestling, going through wrestling, but God, like Raw and SmackDown not always, but actually lately, but Raw is such a slog to get through every week because it's so boring.
Totally agree.
I can't wait until Tuesday Night Dynamite starts.
And with that, we move to SmackDown Live because I don't want to spend any more time talking about Raw. We opened with the wild card rule, which meant AJ Styles was here. This is still the house he built. Apparently, Sami Zayn survived his landfill adventure and is also one of the wild cards. He's not happy to be here, which totally flies in the face of logic, because why would he be a wild card and just tip up?
Yeah, I'm going to go somewhere where I'll be unhappy.
AJ makes some childish jokes at Sami's expense. Kofi and Xavier arrive, and Kofi reminds AJ that he doesn't live in this house anymore. AJ said he was just repaying the favour, and Xavier tells him to check himself before he wrecks himself. Kofi asks AJ what he wants. Sami doesn't want AJ to get a title shot. He deserved the shot. Kofi keeps up the humour of a 4-year-old, see McMahon Vince. Kofi is a fighting champion, and he'll defend it against either man. Well, this sucked. Super formulaic with some asinine smelly jokes at Zayn's expense. Also, another title match. Sure, why not devalue the title too?
Boring, 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 boring. Bland, 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 and blander.
KO isn't here because he hates Kentucky. It is then announced that since Kofi didn't pick either guy, the idiot now has got himself booked in a 3-way dance. What a moron. Zelina Vega puts Andrade over as Mr. Money in the Bank in waiting. And then we got Ali versus Andrade. This was short, but pretty good. Vega distracted Ali early, allowing Andrade to take control and slam him into the barricade. Ali fought back with strikes and hit his rolling X-Factor, but Andrade tossed him into the turnbuckle. Andrade went up top, but Ali crotched him and then hit a top rope Spanish fly that very, very nearly went wrong. But then Randy Orton lays him out from behind for the DQ. Post-match, Randy tries to lay out Andrade too, but Vega makes a save. Ali then is able to fight back, but eventually eats a pop-up RKO, and then Andrade swan dives into another RKO for reasons. This was a fun match, a fine build to Money in the Bank, although the one thing I didn't like was the crowd was actually starting to get behind Ali in the match, but as soon as Orton tipped up and they got into things, they turned against Ali straight away.
Yep.
Maybe not the best way to build Ali.
No, and he really should be being recovered after all the not great work they've done with him since
and the
his
injury he had, which was not their fault.
But
to
they
be fair.
didn't bring him back in the most ideal of ways.
No, they didn't. Shane is out next, and he's here to talk about the SmackDown Tag Team division. But first, he needs to talk about last night. Shane says what Miz did was deplorable, disgusting, and he failed. Just like he will at Money in the Bank. Shane says the SmackDown Tag titles are vacant due to Jeff Hardy's injury, so who is worthy? He announces Daniel Bryan and Rowan as the new champs. The Usos arrive to be wildcard number 3 and number 4, but who knows if they'll even listen to their own rules tonight, so why am I counting? They are here because Roman Reigns invited them to his yard. They worked too hard to just allow Shane to hand the titles over and want a title match with Bryan and Rowan. Shane accepts. This was much better than what the Usos have been doing on Raw, to be fair.
It's just... why won't Shane go away?
Well, that's true.
I remember being so excited when Shane came back, and now I just wish he'd go away. He's become generic heel authority figure number 2.
I like Shane as the babyface commish.
So did I, because he was just down the middle, but erred on the babyface side of things, and it worked really well. I liked it. It was fresh. It was different.
And him and Bryan worked well together, and then later him and Paige worked well together.
Yeah, and it was different, and like just the Usos being there, like in theory, like they're Raw. Why would they be challenging for the SmackDown Tag Team titles?
Because it's a wild card rule, man.
Yeah, and it makes no sense. But
Vince is a genius.
Also, like this, like I think it was Dave Meltzer said. Oh no, it wasn't. It was someone else that I follow on Twitter. But they said it's a YouTuber, and they said like the actual wording, wild card rule. Like you just actually have like a wild card. It's not a rule. It's just a wild card. Like that's where the term wild card comes from. Rant over, but like I feel like my rant's more entertaining than most of WWE TV this week.
So we get Bryan and Rowan versus the Usos. The Usos dominate early until Bryan manages to tag in Rowan. He and Bryan then work a pretty nice heat segment on the Usos. Jimmy fights back, but when he goes for the Superfly Splash, he eats the knees and Bryan transitions into the label lock. Jimmy escapes and hits the super kick. Both men get tags and the Usos dominate. Jimmy hits the Superfly Splash as Jay dives out onto Bryan. The splash gets 2. They go for the double Us Splash, but Bryan makes a save. The Usos try to fight back, but when they both go for a dive on Rowan, he catches them. He throws one towards Bryan, who hits the Busaiku knee, and he throws the other into a barricade, which scares the living daylights out of a woman in the front row, which was absolutely fantastically entertaining. The remaining Uso hits a super kick on Rowan and one on Bryan before going for another on Rowan, but he caught it and then hit the Iron Claw Slam for the win. This was really good, and I guess Bryan is in the tag division for the time being. Given the state of their tag division, probably not the worst idea in the world. And you know what? Bryan cut a promo that is on YouTube, which is absolutely phenomenal. And he cut another promo when he was doing a photo shoot, which I didn't think was quite as phenomenal, but was still very, very good.
Change it.
Bryan is just amazing.
He's the best thing on their TV at the moment.
He's the best thing going today.
Like, he genuinely is. Like, Becky's massively cooled off. Kofi's not quite what he was before Mania. Bryan is by far the most entertaining thing on their TV. I thought this was a really good match, actually. Like, it was always like, I don't like why the match happened, but it was a really good match, and I really hope...
I didn't mind a babyface team coming out and announcing that they weren't happy with the titles being just handed to somebody and challenging them to a match. I didn't mind that. Just it being a Raw tag team didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But given the state of the SmackDown tag division, they probably didn't have anybody because they're clearly building now towards Heavy Machinery versus Bryan and Rowan, which we'll get to in a bit.
Which will be good.
But past that, who's the next top babyface team on SmackDown?
New Hero.
Yeah. Genuinely, I don't know who it is. This is not me asking a question to say I've got this big answer over here. It's me asking a genuine question.
You know what they'll do? They'll put Gable in a tag team.
Because you've got
That's what they'll do.
Nakamura and Rusev are heels. The B team are heels. I think, is that not the entirety of the SmackDown tag team division?
Possibly.
Are the Ascension over there?
Well, either way, they suck.
Yeah.
I bet you they put Gable in a tag team.
Well, could do worse.
But I really like the match, and I think Bryan and Rowan will actually be really good tag champs because just Bryan is the most entertaining thing they've got right now.
Totally agree. And speaking of entertaining things, we went totally away from that next because Shane is out again. This time to announce that the winner of the Money in the Bank matches, but we don't get to hear him actually finish that sentence because Miz becomes wildcard number 5, proving they indeed are incapable of following their own rules already one night after they were already incapable of following their own rules.
Or indeed the rules of maths.
Yeah. And he attacks Shane. The B team attack Miz. Miz fights them off, but then gets taken out by a chair shot from Shane. Bryan and Rowan walk. They need to fix the tag belts. Heavy Machinery are there. Otis versus Bryan, both in the ring and on promos, could be killer if handled correctly.
Yes.
Which it won't be, but it could be killer because Otis exudes charisma and Bryan is just fantastic.
Maybe we'll do a rebooking at some point. In fact, there's so many rebooking series we could do off of this stuff.
You could rebook anything at the minute with this company, like literally anything.
I also can't wait for the hemp tag belts coming.
Me too. Next up, we have Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville versus Carmella and Ember Moon. This was short and largely fine. Sonya speared Carmella for a 2 count, and then Carmella tagged in Ember, who ran wild. She hit a springboard crossbody on Mandy for 1 as Sonya made the save. It breaks down into a big move fest until Ember is the only one left in the ring. She goes for a suicide dive on Mandy, but Sonya pushes Mandy out the way to safety and eats the dive herself. Mandy then hits the bicycle knee on Ember and rolls her back in to hit the implant buster for the win. The right team won, and this was fine, but why is Ember losing in a match containing Carmella?
No idea.
Surely Carmella loses this match.
You'd think, but they don't value Ember. They haven't since she came up. They've never seen her as a top star.
But every time she's remotely involved in something,
she gets over.
That they have to pad for numbers. See the Battle Royal at the Women's Evolution show last year, the Royal Rumble. Anytime she's in a segment like that where they've literally just put her in because they know they need to bulk up the numbers and they need to use every woman they've got at their disposal, she's super over.
Because she's super talented. Yep. No, that's not a good idea. Don't push people who are talented. So actually, you know what? That's no longer an argument, right? Like, they are pushing people who, on the whole, are talented.
They just don't know how to push people anymore.
Like, they've got the most talented roster they've ever had.
On paper.
And they have no idea how to write for them. They don't have stars, but they've got probably the best.
But that's because of the writing.
But that's probably, but I'm not sure that there's loads of people with the potential to be. We talked about this, didn't we? There's not a lot of people with the potential to be stars.
I have a slightly different opinion than you on that. In the sense that them. I think you make stars.
So do I. Because I think you make them too.
I'm not being funny. As much as I love him, and as we've said that Ric Flair is the greatest of all time, but my favourite of all time is Stone Cold Steve Austin. You watch 1996 Steve Austin in WCW before he was fired. Well, maybe earlier than that. Sorry, 94. Did you see him as the top star in the business?
No, but then as soon as he starts doing the Austin gimmick, you see it.
Not straight away when he was doing the Ringmaster and then when he won King of the Ring. Like, he cut a few good promos, but the rocket ship was behind him and they knew how to write people at that point.
True.
These people are not getting the chance. Who's to say there's not the next Stone Cold Steve Austin on this roster?
They just don't know.
But we don't know it because they have lost the ability to make stars.
Yep.
So, post-match, Paige announces Asuka versus and Kairi versus Mandy and Sonya for next week. What are the odds on us actually getting that match, given how they book from week to week? They'll probably change the match.
I'm going to go 83%.
We're recording this on a Thursday, so as we do know, because we're almost a week late with this podcast, the match does actually take place. But I genuinely was, when I was watching the show, was wondering whether we were going to see it or not.
We were 83% sure that they were going to change the net. Oh, that's
wrong thing.
That's Jericho.
Yeah. We get a totally wacky segment where Matt informs us Jeff had surgery and will be back better than ever. Truth tips up to bitch about Lars Sullivan. Lars arrives, prompting hilarity with the pose Matt struck. He beats them up and powerbombs Truth through a table. Okay. Aleister Black has another pre-tape. He is our wrath and our salvation. It was wacky, did not say much, and again lacked the atmosphere that gave Black his aura in NXT. Still missing
They don't get it, do they?
No, they don't.
They just don't get it. But they don't get anything. And I'm like, can we just send all the talented people back to NXT, please? Like, can we please just send them all there? In fact, can Hunter just break off and form his own company? That would be so much better.
So, Kofi versus Sami versus AJ in the main event for the WWE Championship. Is this the first time, by the way, that the WWE title has been defended on Raw and SmackDown in the same week?
I would assume.
I know we've had back-to-back nights for example, when Austin lost the title at a pay-per-view to Kane and then won it back the next night on Raw. Like, I know we've had back-to-back WWE title matches that way, but on a Raw and a SmackDown in the same week, I'm not sure it's happened.
Possibly. Like, certainly since the brand splits happened in 2002. Certainly.
This is your typical three-way match. Kofi hits his high fly floor to the back of a standing AJ. Kofi went for a trouble in paradise, but Sami managed to trip him. Sami hit a tornado DDT on AJ, but Kofi made the save. They fought up top, and Sami hit the superplex on Kofi. He tried to do the same to AJ, but AJ fought out and hit a top rope Hurricane Rana on Sami. He then hit an Ushigoroshi on Kofi. There was a really creative spot as AJ went for his moonsault reverse DDT, but Kofi tried to break it up, so AJ hooked him for a regular DDT at the same time, only for Kofi to reverse that and hit the SOS on AJ as he hit the reverse DDT on Sami, which left all three men down. Kofi and AJ fight until AJ lays him out with a Pele. He went for the phenomenal forearm, but Kofi pushed him, so AJ guillotined himself on the ropes. With AJ out of it on the apron, Kofi had trouble in paradise, which sent AJ to the floor. At this point, Kevin Owens tipped up and brawled with Xavier at ringside and slammed him into the steps. Sami hit the Blue Thunder Bomb on Kofi for 2. He does it a second and a third time, but Kofi kicks out at 2 each time. Zayn sets up for the Haluva kick, but eats trouble in paradise as Kofi retains and Owens leaves the stage in disgust. This was good, if a step below Bryan and Kofi from the previous night. Still a really good main event though. And I don't know whether it was on the back of Raw being so bad or it was genuinely this way, but I thought SmackDown was kind of fun this week. I don't know whether it was just because I watched it back to back with Raw, and Raw was utterly, like, I felt anhedonic watching Raw.
I didn't find it fun to watch. I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
Probably like a 5 out of 10.
Like
because Raw was like a solid 0.5 out of 10.
Raw was a -10 out of 10.
The bits of SmackDown that entertained me with anything to do with Bryan, the main event.
I thought if you took the Shane stuff out, I know you had 2 segments, but you took the Shane stuff out and you took the stupid lacking comedy out of the opening segment. I think the rest of the show on the whole was pretty good. So
it's not exciting though, is it?
Yeah, it wasn't exciting, but that was not my point. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, SmackDown viewership was also up this week as they averaged 1.93 million viewers. This meant they were only 16% down on last year's figure, which sounds ridiculous, but given the fact that they've been over 20% down for most of the year, that is actually a better number. They also retained 86% of Raw's audience, which is slightly higher than average.
Yay. It's still not good. It's still bad. It's worrying. Come football season, they are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
They're going to be below. They're going to be well below 2 because the NBA might not be as popular as it usually is because LeBron's not in the playoffs. Damn you, Lakers. But like football is more popular now than it's been ever. So
they want to hope. I don't know what the schedule is for the finals, but they really want to hope that not many of the finals games falls on Monday nights or Tuesday nights for that matter.
I hope it goes to Game 7, and I hope Game 7's on a Monday.
So next up, we have NXT, and finally, we have an entertaining TV show.
Finally! It only took 3 days of the week.
Yeah. So Bianca Belair versus Mia Yim opened the show. They worked back and forth early, but Bianca took control after hitting a turnbuckle variant of the alley-oop powerbomb on Yim. Yim fought back and grabbed a guillotine, but Bianca fought out with a Northern Light suplex and took control once again until she went for a standing frog splash but ate the knees. Mia hit some strikes and a shotgun dropkick, followed by a cannonball before locking in the tarantula. Mia went for a sunset flip into the ring, but Bianca held onto the ropes for a pinfall attempt, but the ref caught her. This allowed Mia to reverse it into a pinfall, but Bianca reversed it back and grabbed the ropes with more subtlety and got the pin and the win.
Heel.
Yeah?
Yeah,
which
really
she
good.
Kind of always has been.
She has. She's been a very subtle heel, but she's tended to be against more heels.
Just Shayna. Just when she's against Shayna, she's kind of a babyface.
Yeah, I really like Bianca. I think this is really good development for her. And
I thought it was a good match.
I thought it was good. I agree. Yeah, totally agree.
Fun TV match. We see CCTV footage of the War Raiders being ambushed by the Forgotten Sons in what Nigel described as, and I'm quoting here, a military-style assault. Yeah.
What?
NXT's not perfect.
No, but it's a lot better, isn't it?
It is. We see the 3 horsewomen working out in the ring at the PC until Io runs in to attack Shayna. Candice then jumps in too to stop what by then is a 3-on-1, and eventually officials break it up. Fine build.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing that. And if Candice gets more push, then I'm all for that because she's been very underutilized so far.
She has. Next up, we had Riddick Moss versus Raul Mendoza. How many times have they tried to make Riddick Moss work?
5.
Yeah. Mendoza is very underrated, and this match was way better than I expected when he was on offense. Sadly, Moss took control after a fallaway slam. He hit a gorilla press spinebuster, but Mendoza kicked out at 2. He tried to feed Mendoza some of his Riddick regimen drink, but Raul slept it out of his hand and took control with some fast-paced offense. He hit an enziguri in the corner and hit a springboard tornado for the surprise and awesome win, and I was really was genuinely shocked by this. It's not often wrestling shocks me nowadays, but I was so like, Riddick Moss has got a new gimmick. You can tell in me writing when I've wrote me notes there that I'm like, God, the match is fun when Mendoza's on, but it's obviously to get Riddick over and get his new gimmick over, and then all of a sudden Raul win, and I'm like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so it's really cool.
Mendoza's really good.
Yeah.
He was good in the Cruiserweight Classic. Yeah. Oh, remember when wrestling was like really, really good? Well,
it was. The Cruiserweight Classic was really good.
Well,
the product still sucked at that point.
No, it was better though.
It was 2016. It sucked, mate.
It was better than this.
Yeah, it couldn't be worse, but it wasn't good.
No, it was. Oh, come on, give it
It
better.
wasn't good.
No, I didn't say good. Better.
2016 sucked. It's just we've reached new levels of suckitude.
We have.
We
We are boring into the core of
exactly. At that point, we were just like 700 miles underground.
the earth.
Yeah. Anyway, really hope they do more with Mendoza though, because he's
Totally
great.
agree.
And then it was time for our main event, Matt Riddle versus Adam Cole. They worked a great opening stretch before Cole got the heat. He then started talking trash, and after a brief strike battle, Cole landed an enziguri, but Riddle hit an explosive German. Riddle hit a beautiful deadlift German for 2 after that, and then Cole fought back and hit an Ushigoroshi for 2. Riddle fought out of a suplex attempt and hit a rain trigger, but when Riddle went for the brought to sleep, Cole somehow reversed it into a backstabber for 2. Cole stomped on Riddle's bare foot and went for a super kick, but Riddle caught it and locked on the ankle lock. He kept pulling Cole back, and when Cole tried to turn onto his back, Riddle transitioned into the bro mission, but was immediately rolled up by Cole for a near fall. Riddle then hit a fisherman suplex, followed by a second, but when he went for the third, Cole hit a brainbuster on the knee for a great near fall. Cole hit the just kidding super kick, but Riddle fought out of the Panama Sunrise. They traded counters for a while until Cole landed a super kick to the back of Riddle's head and then hit the last shot, but Riddle kicked out at 2. Cole went for it again, but Riddle hit a V-trigger. He followed it up with a brought to sleep, a snap powerbomb, and another V-trigger. Cole rolled out of the ring, and at this point Roddy came down, only to eat a PK from Riddle. Riddle went for a buckshot lariat, but ate a super kick. This got 2, but Riddle transitioned into the bro mission for the submission victory as Roddy stood limp at ringside. This was an absolutely phenomenal main event. Go out of your way to see this match. It's great. And what followed, if you're happy for me to continue, was our segment of the week. It was 2.5 minutes once the match had finished, but that was all it needed to be. I'm not about this Undisputed Era split.
I know,
you know I'm not about it.
But it's been good.
Unbelievably entertaining. It's just Cole and Roddy screaming at each other in the ring. Roddy tried to help Cole up initially, but Cole pulled away, and the two of them just argued as Red Dragon separated them. The crowd chants fight, followed by hug it out, which made me laugh, as if the crowd couldn't decide whether they wanted the split or not. Strong and Fish ended up walking up the ramp together, which was kind of interesting, followed by Cole and O'Reilly together. And when Cole and O'Reilly were walking up, Cole clearly says that all his big losses occur when Roddy gets involved, and when he leaves him alone and Roddy's not there, Cole always wins.
It's Future Shock as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, no, right? It's Future Shock.
Yeah. I remember I was there.
I think we're getting a civil war.
Possibly. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. It'll be interesting.
Awesome.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I really, really wish they would just like sort of reveal it to be all a ruse, and that's how they get the title off Gargano or something like that. I really don't mind. I just don't want the Undisputed Era at the split. I really don't.
Neither do I, because I would like to see them have a run on top, like on top of the whole company. I think that'd be awesome with them, like all the belts, maybe something like that.
I still think they missed a trick by not bringing Undisputed Era up in time to do Undisputed Era versus the Shield.
Totally agree, but then they should have them. Like, would you really have wanted them on the main roster right now?
God no.
So I think right now, I'm happy for them being in NXT.
Stay where they are, yeah.
Yeah.
This was another great episode of NXT.
Yep.
A great main event and some fun undercard stuff.
Yep, totally agree. NXT, great as usual. Totally unlike anything else.
Yeah. Actually, with that, we'll move to 205 Live, which was also pretty good this week.
Dear me.
And Mike and Maria hosted the opening video package this week. They announced Kendrick is banned from ringside tonight and promised Mike will win tonight. Kendrick then cuts a promo on behalf of Tozawa. He tells Mike he's screwed as Tozawa smiles his goofy smile. Tozawa and Kendrick are just great. I absolutely love them. Arya Daivari versus Noam Dar was the opening match. Before the match, we see an interview with Tony Nese from last week, which was interrupted by Daivari, who let Nese know if he'd wanted to, he could have taken him out at any point during his match. Nese came to ringside before the match began. Daivari got in Nese's face during the heat stretch. He dominated some more and got in Nese's face again, which allowed Dar to cradle him for a near fall. Some obvious spot calling followed before Dar hit a nice European uppercut and a Northern Light suplex for 2. Dar ducked a lariat and locked on the ankle lock, but Daivari fought out. He missed the hammerlock lariat and went for a super kick, but Dar transitioned back into the ankle lock. Daivari fought out again and hit a super kick, frog splash, and the hammerlock lariat for the win. This was fine. Nothing good, nothing bad, really. Nese got in the ring after the match and psyched out Daivari, giving him the same message Daivari had given him the previous week, which was a nice bit of mind games from Nese.
Yeah, this is fine. Like, this is not going to go very long, so I'm okay with this being a very short feud.
Yeah. Oney Lorcan talks about losing his first big opportunity a few weeks ago, but he's going to train harder, and when the next opportunity comes, he will become Cruiserweight Champion. And then we had the Singh brothers versus two jobbers. A typical squash match. The Singhs won with a top rope elbow drop backbreaker combo. Post-match, the Singh brothers challenged Lucha House Party for a match next week.
Awesome.
We went backstage. Drake Maverick approached Mike and Maria. She thanked him for banning Kendrick from ringside and said finally they were both on the same page. But then Drake bans her too. Much to Nigel's chagrin, Nigel's reaction was amazing to this. Like, he just basically went, Maria's banned from ringside? This is a tragedy. It was absolutely just brilliant comedic heel commentary. Just fantastic.
He's very good at it
I
now.
could hear Bobby the Brain saying something like that. I really could.
Yeah, he's very good at that now. He's become very good at it.
So Sarah Schreiber interviews Jack Gallagher backstage about his match with Humberto Carrillo, James Drake and Mark Andrews next week. She asks what is at stake for him. Jack says he's grateful to be medically cleared and for the opportunity to represent 205 Live in his own country. Carrillo approaches Gallagher and says he will beat him in London. Jack says he can try, as they share an uneasy handshake.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I do like I really love the story they've told with Carrillo.
Yeah, and Gallagher.
It's been so good.
Yeah, I'm totally about it. And our main event was a no disqualification match as Mike Kanellis took on Akira Tozawa. They fight back and forth early until Tozawa locks on the octopus hold, but Mike counters out and slams him on the ramp. Tozawa hits a Hurricane Rana and follows with a suicide dive, but eats a kick in midair. Mike sets up chairs, but Tozawa fights back and suplexes Mike onto the chairs. On the outside, Tozawa puts a trash can on Mike's head and follows up with a suicide dive. Back in, and Tozawa heads up top and hits the missile dropkick for 2. He brings the trash can back in, but Mike hits a Michinoku driver onto the can for 2. Tozawa hits the snap German for 2. Tozawa then Germans Mike on the apron and lays him on the tables. He heads up top and Mike rolls off the tables, so Tozawa drops down and Mike hits a super kick and lays Tozawa on the tables. Mike then heads up top and Tozawa cuts him off. They work up top and trade strikes, and Tozawa hits a Hurricane Rana and sends Mike through the table. Back in, and Tozawa piles chairs on Mike and follows up with the big top rope sent on for the win. This was by far and away the best match Mike Kanellis has had on 205 Live. Really fantastic match. Nah, in ROH you had some better matches in like tags with Taven and Cole and stuff like that. They had some fun matches. But since he's come to WWE, this was by far and away Kanellis' best match. And you know what? This was a super, super strong main event, I thought.
I agree. I thought it was pretty good. Back and forth. Good finish. Correct finish as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, Tozawa should always win over Kanellis. Hopefully ending their feud now, and Tozawa can now hopefully move on, possibly to face Nice after Nice defeats Davari.
I wouldn't be against that at all.
Oh, that would be good. 205 Live I still feel like it needs like restocking. Like,
it does, yeah.
It feels weak and it feels a bit like empty at the moment. There's not really that many guys.
It just feels like it's no title run can go massively long because there's not a volume of guys there for the champ to face.
Exactly.
So it was a so-so episode of 205 Live. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was solid. It had a really good main event, and the rest of the stuff varied from fine to kind of dull, but okay.
Yeah, it was a solid episode of 205 Live. It was fine.
And with that, we will move on to any other business. So the Best of Super Juniors is underway. It'll be interesting to see how this is booked, with Dragon Lee as champ and Hiromu hopefully making his return soon. I've got a funny feeling whoever wins is destined to lose to Dragon Lee at Dominion, and then Hiromu will make his return while Dragon Lee's celebrating. That is kind of the way I'm thinking it's going to go.
Fingers crossed.
I do have a recommended match though. Shingo Takagi versus Shaw from day 1, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
Was absolutely fantastic, and you need to go out your way to see that.
I haven't seen that. I will check that out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. PWG Mystery Vortex was apparently a really good show with an absolutely crazy guerrilla warfare main event between Darby Allin and Joey Janela. It also saw Jeff Cobb retain his title against Jonathan Gresham. And we've had all 4 ROH New Japan War of the World shows since we've been off the air. These shows looked entertaining, but nothing major happened aside from Shane Taylor winning a fatal 4-way to win the TV title from Jeff Cobb. I assume this leads to Cobb's ascension to the main event scene, possibly being the one to dethrone Matt Taven, maybe even as early as Best in the World. I definitely feel like that's the direction they're going. I definitely think Jeff Cobb's the next champ. in Ring of Honor.
Like, do you think they're looking at him as the guy?
Yeah, I really do. Which is not a bad shout for them at the minute.
And to be fair, get him used before NXT come calling, because they're going to.
Yeah, at some point. They can't miss out on Jeff Cobb.
No.
And from the Progress Super Strong Style 16 shows, we saw David Starr win the tournament, defeating Jordan Devlin in the final, and Volta unify the Progress World and Atlas Championships by beating Trent Seven. I've not seen any of the shows, but very exciting news that nobody apart from us will care about, that our Progress tickets have come.
Yes, we are going to Progress.
We're going to see Chapter 91 in Newcastle sometime in July, I believe. 6th of July.
6th?
I think it is.
Yeah.
6th of July, so very
Cannot
exciting.
wait.
Shame, though, that Jimmy Havoc has finally done his final Progress show. There's a wonderful YouTube tribute video that Progress have done for him, which is great. You should go out your way to see
And
it.
what was his last match? Have you seen?
No, I don't.
His last match in Progress, he did a death match with
I
Paul
did
Robinson.
see. Yes,
and the pictures do not do justice to quite how bloody he looks.
Yeah. So Killer Cross has requested and been denied his release from Impact Wrestling. His current deal still has several years left, so we'll see what happens with that. And I probably should have put this in the news, but I was really annoyed with WWE because of how bad the shows were this week. And also, I don't really like talking about this show, but the Saudi show has announced 3 matches, a 50-man battle royal, Triple H versus Randy Orton, and Goldberg versus The Undertaker. And I'm just learning, as Jonathan's just thrown his phone at us, that we have confirmation that Alexa Bliss has been taken out of the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match to be replaced by Nikki Cross.
Well, they say a suitable replacement on Twitter, but the strong rumour is that Nikki Cross is the one that's going to be taking the position.
That would make sense, given what we saw on Raw this past week, which we will be talking about on our next episode, because we're pretty much behind at this point.
Yeah, but before we go on, like the reason why we're behind on time, it's not Adam's fault, it's because of mine. I've had a lot of scheduling issues this week. There's been a lot going on, things like that have just meant that I've been unable to record. So we fully intend on being back to our schedule in the coming weeks. And while we're not, just bear with us. We will still be producing content. Just give us a couple of weeks.
And with that, I think it's time to move on to our final segment of the week. And what is the final segment this week, Jonathan?
Right, so this week I think that it's probably a good idea, considering obviously that we've been talking about Ric Flair earlier, and obviously Flair, going through something that we don't know a lot about. But I thought, well, we both think that Ric Flair is the greatest wrestler of all time, so we'll spend a few minutes talking about why we actually think that. Like, why is Ric Flair, without doubt in, I think, both of our minds, the greatest professional wrestler of all time? Do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the fact that he's almost the perfect person, because you look out there and you've got, and this is not a detriment to any of these people, a lot of them are fantastic at what they do, but you look at somebody like Bret Hart, who was really, really good in the ring, and he was a decent promo, but he wasn't anything...
7 out of 10 promo?
Yeah.
When he was a heel.
Yeah, and he had some really entertaining promos in his time, but just an average Ric Flair interview, not the best thing in the world. Like, sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be okay, sometimes it would be great, but he was never the one to blow you away with his mic skills. And then you've got certain people throughout history who've been able to cut just the most amazing promos and just nothing in the ring. Like, it's on a different level, but you look at somebody like Elias now, where he is absolutely phenomenal on the mic.
Not a great wrestler.
Super entertaining and charismatic, but you put him in the ring and it's just death.
Yeah, it's
I
boring.
like the guy, but it's just death.
Yeah.
Ric Flair had the ability to be both absolutely phenomenal in the ring and absolutely phenomenal as a character and absolutely phenomenal on the mic. He was just the all-round... He was, ironically enough, the total package. Sorry, Lex, but he was. He was just absolutely phenomenal, and his career spanned so many years as well. He had such longevity. His ability to have good matches, which with pretty much everybody not named Junkyard Dog, was pretty phenomenal. You could put him in there with some people who were absolutely awful, and Ric Flair would drag a 3.5-star match out of them.
Yeah.
He's had some of the most legendary matches of all time, and he was consistently fantastic. Like, at the time when they used to go from territory to territory to territory, and he'd be working 4, 5, 6 days a night as the NWA World Champion.
And going out with the champ.
And he'd be going out there and he'd be having phenomenal match after phenomenal match. And we talk about how grueling the WWE schedule is now. That was probably maybe not equally as grueling, but
the closest thing
to it. But he wasn't going out there having house show matches every night.
No.
He was going out there having pay-per-view matches every night.
And going an hour with the guy from the local.
Exactly,
the local
going
promotion.
to Memphis and going an hour with somebody, and then going to Mid-South and going an hour with somebody, and going to Texas and going an hour with Von Erich.
Yeah.
Like it was Ric Flair, and that was what he did.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely phenomenal at it.
So for me, like, I don't think necessarily that Ric's the greatest in-ring wrestler of all time. I always think that goes to Shawn Michaels.
Which I'd kind of agree with.
But
yeah.
if Shawn is number one, then I think Ric is very certainly number two.
He's certainly top 5, I'd say.
But it's just the all-round package, and I don't think there's anyone ever who's had the ability to carry a wrestling company for as long as Ric did, and for as well as Ric did.
Because he carried Crockett, didn't he?
He had so many unbelievable rivalries, from Dusty to Sting, even Hogan. Okay, but there's so many others.
Yeah. Steamboat.
The Impact, the Four Horsemen, my favorite wrestling match of all time,
Yeah,
Chi-Town Rumble.
yeah.
Just unbelievable. His character, worked somehow as a babyface as well as a heel, because
Better as a heel, but yeah.
Because you may have hated him, but like you kind of respected him for just his sheer bravado.
A lot of what you hated about Ric, though, was because you kind of wanted to be him.
Yeah, of course. I hate you because I'm not you.
If we were like guys in the 80s, and obviously it was before we were born, but if we were guys in the 80s, I can categorically guarantee I would have wanted to be Ric Flair.
Of course.
He was cool.
Yeah, of course.
He got all the ladies. He was, on top of the world. He had all this money. He had all this power. He was the greatest wrestler in the world. Why wouldn't you want to be Ric Flair?
He was just absolutely amazing, and he was so good as well for so long. He remained good well into the 90s, was way underutilized, but remained really good.
Even in like late 90s, early 2000s Nitro, where he's going out there and cutting those promos where he just looks like he's out of his mind on drugs, which he may well have been for all we know. I would have been on drugs to try and get through some of those Nitros, if I'm being perfectly honest. But he would just go out there and cut that. I remember a feud he had with Terry Funk where they were just out there and both of them had lost their minds, and they're just cutting promos that make no sense, and they're just screaming at each other. And you know what? It was great entertainment.
Yeah.
Made for great television. Like Flair was so good for so long.
Like the greatest wrestler of all time. And I don't think it'll ever come close. Like when I picture Flair and that, the big gold belt, the NWA title, like that is what wrestling is to me.
You know what? I'm going to possibly have an unpopular opinion with you here, but I think the only person who's currently going today that could possibly challenge Ric for the overall crown of the greatest performer of all time is Kazuchika Okada. He's still young, he's still got a long way to go, and he's built up a hell of a career so far. If there's anybody out there that can end up going down as greater than Ric, I think it's probably Okada. I don't think he will, but I think if you look at the current crop, he's the only one that you could say with any degree of certainty has even a chance of getting there.
Possibly, but Ric has the Joe Montana effect.
Yeah, true.
So no matter how great,
what you're saying is
Okada's Tom Brady. no matter how great they are, like genuinely, like we have this conversation all the time about like who's better, Montana or Brady, and a lot of the time we go like, well, surely it's gotta be Brady, but then
it's gotta be Montana.
But we can't bring ourselves to say that Montana's not the best quarterback of all time.
It also depends on the week. Or even the
day
of the week.
Or the
I
hour.
might wake up on Monday and think, yeah, Joe Montana's better than Tom Brady. But I can guarantee by Friday I'll be like, I hate him, but Tom Brady is better than Joe Montana.
But just 100% the greatest wrestler of all time, and I don't think we can deny that. I don't think anyone can.
And if anybody has a different opinion, let us know. But explain why, please, because you've got to explain why somebody's better than Ric.
Or better, give us your favourite Ric Flair moment as well.
Yeah, that too. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up the show for this week. We really appreciate you being patient with us for the last couple of weeks, because I know our schedule's kind of been all over the place.
Me especially.
So we are nearly a week late with this podcast, so we will be recording again on Saturday, and that podcast will go up on Saturday evening / Sunday morning, so we'll be back to some form of normality. Obviously, Money in the Bank is this coming weekend.
Hooray.
So when we do our podcast on Friday / Saturday, our final segment will be our Money in the Bank predictions, and you will be getting...
I'll be getting my revenge.
And we will be doing a post Money in the Bank show. So we will see you for those shows. So there is a lot coming up. Obviously, Double or Nothing's not far away, so we'll have a show for that as well. But with that, Jonathan, is there anything you'd like to add before we go?
No, let's just please WWE, please be better next week.
Sorry, we're out of time. We'll see you on Saturday on the Two Man Booth.